Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Robin Zwirtz. I'm the president and founder of BirdDog Software. And today we're going to be looking at BirdDog Software's Sales Order Management tool, and with a specific focus on the customer service aspect of the tool. And so, when we talk about sales order management, it's a very big product and does lots of things. Today, we're going to be very focused on that front end piece. If you're not familiar with me, I've been in and around ERP systems for a long time. I actually started my first consultancy dealing with ERPs in 1991, and spun that off, and in 2005 started BirdDog Software, and we've been building tools to make ERPs better ever since. Today, BirdDog has three major product lines. E-commerce is our oldest product line. We started that. Actually, the product started before the company. That started way back in 2000. After that, we added BirdDog Enterprise, which is where we'll be looking today, specifically inside the sales order management piece of Enterprise, but Enterprise covers just about everything that an enterprise needs to function. And then our newest product line is what's on the left side, and that is our connectors or middleware product line. And so what we're going to basically start off is we're sitting here in the universe, and we're going to actually just drill down until we get to where we're looking today. And so, since we're talking about BirdDog Enterprise, I just wanted to give you a quick shot of the whole thing. If you're not familiar with it, this is the dashboard that enterprise users have access to, where you can see customer service, which is what this is the piece right here that we're going to be focused on today. But it sets inside of an entire suite of products, including Brain, which is our CRM, Sales Analysis, which is obviously a tool for reviewing open, current, and historical sales. And then very rapidly gets into our e-commerce system and distribution and manufacturing processes. So drilling into Enterprise, into sales order management, you can see that our perspective of sales order management really encompasses three main pieces, and that's basically the front office piece of get an order that is shippable, and then the warehouse management piece, which is actually delivering that, and then the final piece is the back office piece, where we can completely automate the entire end of day process. And so, again, looking back up at the front office, you can see that we basically have a sales order. Obviously, the goal of sales and customer service specifically is to get an order into the system, which is represented by this guy right here. At BirdDog, we have tons of ways to automate getting orders into the system, whether that be our sales order import, our e-commerce tool, or our integration with other systems where we can pull orders into the system. But today we're going to be focused on what I believe is becoming a more and more critical piece of an enterprise, and that is the customer service aspect. As BirdDog has always been on the leading edge of moving companies to the web. We think that it's basically a requirement that you be on the web and you have an e-commerce application that can handle the vast majority of your customers. And so what that means is that's what actually ends up in your customer service department is typically customers that are struggling or high value customers that need extra attention. And so even though we've automated a lot of things with e-commerce, I think it's actually made customer service even more important than it has been in the past. And so we're going to drill into this. And when we're just going to jump right into customer service, and the very first thing we deal with when we're a CSR is we're either going to take a phone call or we're going to get an email, and that's going to we're going to be interacting with a customer. And so the very first function we have in customer service is that interaction with who's the customer I'm on the phone with. And we have a powerful search tool here that allows you to search by customer number if you know it. Typically, you're going to do either part of the name. A lot of our customers actually deal with customers that have a lot of customers with the same name, so they might do name and part of a city or a state, whatever you need to actually drill into that customer and get that customer selected. Once you have a customer selected, that just so you know, if you happen to have a VoIP system that will actually do a what they call a phone pop, we can actually integrate this with inbound phone calls as well, where you take a phone call. Your VoIP app running on your Windows PC gets that phone call, and it can actually take that phone number and actually pop a browser, and that can auto select the customer as well. So once you've selected a customer, you're basically looking at the customer service dashboard, and this has all of the tools that you need. And this is a really key takeaway, is it's very focused on the customer that you're talking to. And so in this scenario that we're running today, I've selected All American Distribution as the customer that I'm looking for. And so you'll notice I have a set of views. And so here I can look at customer info, summary, open orders, invoice history, all of this information over here. And we're actually going to kind of drill into some of this. But the idea with customer service is that I want 100% of the data that a CSR needs to do their job and to answer questions to the customer available basically at a moment's notice. And so, a lot of times when a customer calls in, they may want to know what open orders they have. They may want to know, hey, what's the status of that, that order that I placed last week, or has that been shipped? Is the invoice? Do you have a tracking number? All of that kind of information we want to have available at the CSR's fingertips. And so the first link here is going to be customer info. And so that basically takes you to what amounts to a customer screen where you can view all of their data, address, contact data. If they have any saved credit cards, you can see the last four. You obviously can't see the entire credit card number for PCI compliance reasons. All of their setting versus financial, what shipping address they have, if they have any special pricing, all of the data that's related specifically to the customer and their ship tos. The next screen you're going to see is the customer summary. And so I mentioned earlier that we support a screen pop. This is actually the screen that comes up if your VoIP system sends a phone number to us. We're going to pop you to a screen that actually shows all of the open orders the customer has, along with recent invoices that have shipped out. We then have the ability to just look at open orders. And so this is actually a very common thing that a customer is going to want to know about is, hey, those orders that I've placed, what are their status? All of the data here is hyperlinked so that you can drill in and get more detailed information on the specific order. If you're not used to customer service, you will notice that customer service typically tracks a bit more data than your ERP does. We're going to track not only who the sales rep is, and so this order was basically associated with the website salesperson, but I can actually tell who actually entered the order, which was me, because it actually says that. In addition, we have the concept of order by, which tells me who I'm on the phone with. So you can see that information here. And we actually use that information in ways I'll show later when we're actually communicating with that customer, for example, with a quote or an order acknowledgement. And so this is basically all the data about that particular open order. In addition, I have invoice history. This basically will look at all of the invoice history that is in your ERP. And so as far back as you've got history, we'll show it. This also is hyperlinked very similarly to the order screen, except it's an invoice now. And so, one of the big differences you'll see here very quickly is we now have a tracking number in the middle with the ability to track. So the CSR can actually click that and see what the status, where that package is in its delivery process. One of the things I did want to point out is, and this is actually a recent addition to customer service is that you'll notice that we now have a documents tab down at the bottom. And so we've began adding document support throughout enterprise, and customer service is a place that has one of the places that got enabled for that. So you'll notice at this point, we expect if you get a purchase order from your customer, you're going to attach it to the sales order so that it's actually available throughout the life of that sales order, including when it gets posted to an invoice. You'll still have this link right here for any documents that were associated with that sales order, even once it's posted to an invoice. And you can see that tab down here as we have documents. So again, the goal here, all the data that a CSR needs at their fingertips. Last but not least is basically money. And so, we've been looking at orders, we've been looking at invoices, but sometimes you just need to know, if a customer's dealing with, their own credit hold, they're over their credit limit, they might want to discuss their account and where they're at with payments. This screen, the account detail screen, is basically a snapshot into accounts receivable, and will show them all of that data. So we can actually see not just the invoices that I've sent you, but how much do you actually owe me right now, and is any of it overdue, that kind of data. So once we get past that, obviously the main job of a CSR is to get orders into the system. And so when we click the Enter Orders button, we're going to show up at the customer service order entry screen. And so again, this screen is designed from the aspect of, I want all data that the CSR needs to answer customer questions available at their fingertips. And so in this particular case, I had already selected the customer when I came to this screen. This screen does have a type ahead search on it that we can use if you're using it over and over, and you can just type in a customer's name and it'll show up. Once I have the order entered, I'm typically going to use our type ahead search again to search for items. This is integrated with our product information management. And so if you're using PIM, we're actually going to display the marketing description for the item. Otherwise, we'll just pull the data right out of your ERP. And so you can see here, I've typed the beginning of the word Phillips, and it's giving me all of the data related to that. I then basically entered the customer's request for 100 of these bulbs, or I'm sorry, for 1,000 of these bulbs. And the system immediately told me that there's only 970 available. It highlighted that with red so that I know that I've got a back order. And this is a huge piece, is it actually told me a promise date on when I'm going to be able to ship the items that are short. And so customer service actually has the ability to for you to tell it if you want the order to ship complete or not. And so again, dealing with the customer, we could say we have 970 in stock. Do you want me to ship those to you today and ship the remaining 30 when they become available? Or do you want me to hold the order so that the entire order ships together once it's here, which will reduce shipping charges typically. And so that's we call that ship complete. And so the back ordered amount are not going to be available until January the 16th. The way that we calculate the promise date is via our ATP logic. And so we basically go through a decision tree of, is it available? Obviously, if it's available, ATP is today. If it's not available, is this a purchased item or a manufactured item? If it's a purchased item, we're going to look at, are there any inbound POs that actually have availability on that we can use, and we can use that PO's arrival date as the date. Otherwise, we're going to use the item's purchasing lead time. If it's a manufactured item, we're going to look to see, do I have any inbound work orders for this item? If so, and they have to have availability, that if so, we'll use that work order's due date. If not, we'll actually drill through the manufactured item into its bill of material until we determine basically what's my availability for components, their purchase lead time, along with the item's manufacturing lead time to calculate an accurate ATP. Once I have that item added, You'll notice over here on the left, we're basically displaying obviously the part number and the description, but in addition, we have some icons. Those icons are built to give the CSR more features. The first one is the item information. This actually allows you to see all of your location data along with what is on hand at each location, availability, any back order or an order issue you're dealing with, and the ATP at each location. In addition, if the item is serialized, it'll actually allow you to drill in and see serial lot information that is available at that particular location. The next button, the little pencil icon, is the item comments. And so this allows you to put comments in that are specific to a document type. And so, for example, if you want to put a message on the invoice or something on the picking about not forgetting something, then you can do that here. The last button is a quick link to our sales analysis tool, and it basically will take you to our sales analysis tool with the item number you're viewing and the customer number you're viewing pre-selected. And so it makes it very easy to see on this particular item, what kind of history am I doing with this customer on this item? And so that you can see what pricing you've been doing over long periods of time. Basically, again, we're trying to put history at the fingertips of the CSR. So at this point, I have an item that's been placed on order. The customers agreed to this information, and now I want to basically deal with the final part of placing the order. And so the next question I'm going to ask them is basically, how do you want it shipped? And so I can open up the freight information tab, and all of my available shipping methods will show, and I can click rate shipping to get a real-time freight shipment rating for the order that's currently in the system. And so you can see here, I can communicate. And again, the idea here is to have this data at your fingertips so there's no back and forth between the warehouse. We want the CSR to be able to answer everything possible to get this order in the system without having to, take notes, call them back with better data, all of that. We want it at their fingertips. And so at this point, the CSR can communicate the different pricing methods of, what it's going to take to ship next day versus ground versus 3-day. All of that data is right here. Last but not least is we have tightly integrated credit card processing. And so if you change the credit card the terms on the order to credit card terms, you will get basically a credit card information that you can enter. This works with all of the credit card gateways that BirdDog supports. The big one is authorize.net. That's the most popular, but we support others. We also support saving customers' credit cards. All of this is done in a PCI compliant manner. None of that credit card data is stored in our database, would never be stored in your database. It's all stored at the credit card, and we just maintain a token or a reference to that credit card data. And last but not least, we place the order. Once I place the order, I'm presented obviously with the same order view screen that we saw earlier, because now I've got an order in the system. I do have a handful of icons up at the top that the first one is obviously the edit icon that allows me to edit it, make any changes. The next one is I can now email an order acknowledgement to my customer if I so desire. The next one is I have the ability to duplicate this order, so I can place an order and then immediately dump a copy of this order back into order entry to make changes to it. This is typically used when a customer is doing a reorder. I might be looking at an invoice for an order they placed a month or a year ago, and they're saying just like that. In that case, I'd go pull that invoice up, click this same button, and I would have I'd have it in order entry where I could process that order. The next button is basically the print button that gives me the ability to print a order document related to the order type. So if I'm looking at a quote, it's going to print a quote. If I'm looking at an order, it's going to print an order acknowledgement. And so these are PDFs that are completely customizable via Crystal reports. And then the last button is uh, the order audit tracking. And so if you want to see when this order was added, who made changes, any of that kind of audit data that you would be interested in seeing on an order, you can click this button. This button is the audit button for the order itself, the order header. And then you'll also notice over on the line under the action column, we also have the same button for lines. You can actually see line level audit data as well. And then the last button you'll see down here below, that's actually our field icon. We do support custom fields throughout customer service, both on customers and ship tos and orders and order lines all over the system. We support custom fields, an unlimited number of custom fields. And so this actually brings up a dialog so you could see any custom field data that was done at the line level. So that's basically the end-to-end of, I got a phone call coming in and I need to select a customer all the way to getting the order placed. And again, the entire design goal behind this system is 100% of the data that a CSR needs to be able to place an order at their fingertips. What we have also found is that many organizations will have lots of basically custom business logic that ends up in many cases as sticky notes or notepads of don't forget to do this, or please remember to do this, or when it's this customer you got to do this other thing. And we don't want to have that kind of procedures where we have to remember a bunch of stuff. And so we've built a tool called order rules. And so the whole idea of order rules is to turn those business, basically those rules that you've created into actual logic that the system can follow. And so here you're going to see that we have a list of example products. We can use order rules basically to manage putting orders on credit hold. We can use them to deal with tax issues. I'm going to show you some examples of these. So for example, one of a common thing is, hey, I've got a catalog and I want to send that to all my new customers. And so in this particular case, I've set up an order rule that I've named send catalog to new customers. If I want, I can actually give it a start date and end date of when it's actually valid. And then I basically start defining the triggers. And so the triggers are the things that have to be true for this order rule to apply. And so in this situation, I've basically said, I only want this to apply to new customers. And then if this rule applies, we're then going to get the results. And so if you think about an if-then system, triggers are the if, results are the then. And so in this particular case, we're basically giving them an item for free. And the criteria is actually the part number that we're going to give them. So that's a part number for a catalog. So when a new customer comes in and places an order, the system will automatically add this item to the order for them. Another example that's very common is freight. Amazon has made the whole thing about giving free freight a really big deal. It's what customers expect at this point. And so a lot of our customers have rules on when do you get free freight. And so in this particular case, we've basically said if I'm doing an order that's over $200, I want to get free freight. And so you can see I've got the amount ordered is 200 or greater, and the result is free freight on the order. You can actually get much more interesting than this. Some customers will do this kind of thing, but they only do it in the continental United States. And so in that case, you would add a ship to state trigger. You would have the criteria be Hawaii and Alaska, and then you would invert the order. And so, or invert the trigger. So as long as it's not those two, it's going to go free freight. And so that's just an example of some of the complexities that you can do in order rules. This order rule is basically when you're dealing with, you could basically build a credit scoring system for your customers. Imagine you have an ABC credit score, and customers that are not credit score A that are placing large orders, I want to actually have somebody review them. So in this particular case, I've got a trigger that's looking at a customer property. The customer property is credit rating, and I look, and the criteria I'm looking for is A, but I've inverted it. And so that basically means if it's not A, I want this to return true. And then the second trigger is that the order is $1,000 or greater. And so in this particular case, both of these would have to be true. The customer's credit rating would have to not be A, and the amount ordered would have to be greater than 1,000. And if both of those are true, then we're going to place the order on hold because the order is large, and we want our credit reporting, our billing department, for example, to look at it and just validate that they're comfortable with placing this order. So again, just an example. One of the things that we're really excited about that we've been working very closely with one of our customers is a approval process. And so historically, when we've had issues where orders need to be reviewed, what we've basically used this trigger a lot, this whole concept of place an order on hold and give it an order reason, or give it an on hold reason that actually tells the credit analyzer why it's on hold, so they can look at it. And so this has been a pretty heavily used result. What we're actually created is an approval process. And so for existing customers that own customer service or sales order management specifically, this will come out in the January release, which will be 28.5. And so this is in the coming soon category, but just 2 weeks away. And so in this particular case, what we've done is we basically said we want any order that's over $100 to go through an approval process. So I basically use my amount order trigger again for $100. I also have a result of add order message. I want it to be very clear to the CSR entering the order that it requires approval. And then I also did the require approval result. And so, this has quite a bit of criteria. One of them is what project type am I going to use to manage this approval? Who do I want to be the manager of the projects that are being approved? And then basically a message that we can jam on the order about why it's requiring approval. When an order hits those requirements, basically the order entry system actually changes. And so you can see I'm looking at an order right now where this process has been triggered, and I've gotten the message that's basically saying, hey, by the way, all orders over $100 require approval for now. And the place order button has disappeared. So the CSR actually can't place the order now. What they can do, however, is request approval. And so the idea is that the CSR is going to go through their process just like they normally would. And when the order is done, they're going to request approval. When they do that, the system is going to automatically send a message or a task via Brain, our CRM, to the person that's in charge of approving. And so you'll notice here that we basically have a message that this sales order for this amount has been requested approval, with a link back to the order. And so the approver can go to their inbox. They're going to see that they have something that needs approval. Just by the way, would know there's something in their inbox because the mailbox actually has mail and the flag's up. And so the approver would click the link, and that's actually going to take them back to that order that the CSR was working on. But now, because they have the role that allows them to approve sales orders, they get two buttons now of approve or deny. And so if they deny, system's going to send a message back to the CSR saying, hey, this is why it was your order's been denied. If they approve it, going to send them a message that saying that it's approved. This is In addition, because of the fact that this is being managed by our brain, our project management CRM system, I can actually go look at all the projects of type sales order approval. I can see all of the orders that are in process to be approved, and I can see what their current status is, which could be requested approval, could be denied. This one is obviously approved. And so this actually allows you to manage them at a higher level. So you might imagine you have a sales manager that's working on making sure all the approvals are being handled. You could run this report and verify that nothing is falling through the cracks. So approval button is pressed. We now have, this is the message that's going to go back to the CSR saying that, hey, by the way, your order is approved, with a link back to the sales order so that they can place it. So this is just, again, this is a ongoing process to basically move everything into the customer service sales order management process so that 100% of the data that we need to do our processes is in that system. That is the goal and what we're constantly working towards. So that is the end of my presentation. Do we have any questions, Adam?
I didn't see any questions in the chat. So if there are any, I think everybody saved them towards the end, so I'll open it up if anybody would like to ask some questions.
You guys are an easy bunch.
I know we have some members of our team on this call. Since it sounds like nobody has any questions, I'll open it up to our team as well, if anybody had some questions. All righty.
I actually did have a question.
Okay.
So back when you were talking about, excuse me, the automatic freight rating, where does it get the information to decide what the freight rate is?
The freight rating process is actually pretty sophisticated. We've been working on that technology for close to 20 years. A lot of that comes from our e-commerce roots, where we have to be able to present a valid freight rate to to a customer without any human intervention. The first piece of that is the freight API. So it's going to be UPS, FedEx, the post office. We also have integrated with a company called Freight Views so that we can do LTL shipments as well when we're dealing with truckload type shipments. The first step is we basically take the sales order, and you basically can't take a sales order and hand it to UPS and say how much to ship this. UPS wants to know how many packages and what they weigh, and so the very first step is our packaging algorithm that takes that order, basically the sales order lines that you have, and turns those into estimated packages, and we then send that to the API and ask them how much is this going to cost. And so all of this inside of our freight system has lots of knobs and levers where you can control how it works. How does the system, what does it think of as a typical package? Am I dealing with dim weights? Do I want to charge what the freight carrier told me, or do I want to discount it or upcharge it? Do I want to add per package fees? Do I want to add per shipment fees? Lots and lots and lots of settings that you can use to basically manage that to get to the right the right shipping amount for you to give your customer. In addition, those are kind of the standard settings. In addition, that system has an exception setting to where you could have the default setting and then say, yeah, okay, so our typical is that we're going to get a rate from UPS, and we're gonna pass that list rate on to our customer as what we charge them. Might be we're gonna get a discount, but we're gonna go ahead and attempt to make some profit in that particular situation. And we're gonna do that in general for all of our customers. But we might have a high value customer type that we don't want to do that for. And so we set up an exception based upon customer type that customer gets let's say a 10% discount on ground shipments, where we're attempting to pass on some of our discount to those high value customers so that, their rate is actually closer to what we're paying.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I had a question. Let's say you're in an environment where you need multiple approvals. So maybe the first approval is actually accepting the order, but maybe there's another approval that needs to be done maybe at picking or at shipping. Is it possible to have more than one approval in this process?
Not currently. And to be honest, I'd say our warehouse management process is really built to, we don't want anything to ever go out into the warehouse until it's actually shippable. And so we'd want to be holding that in the system, either an approval process or an on hold process, so that it won't pick. We don't want it to pick until it's actually can go. And so the minute I hand a pick ticket to the warehouse, I don't want them thinking about, it. For example, has my credit card authorized? Did I get payment on this? That's a big part of how customer service actually interacts with the entire sales order management ecosystem is if I got a credit card order, we're going to make sure that we have a valid credit card authorization before the pick ticket prints, again, under the heading of, I don't want warehouse management thinking about things that are not really their problem. That's a front office thing. Don't give me an order to pick until I can actually ship it.
Sure.